that that's an address within Kern County. And in some cases, there are nonprofits that are organized outside of Kern County, but provide services here. They might not be eligible. But in other cases, and I'll use, I think Goodwill is a good example. Goodwill is we know, is a huge organization, probably worldwide, but the Goodwill of Kern County is a Kern County nonprofit registered in Kern County with a Kern County address. So even though they're part of a very large organization, they would still be considered Kern County. At least that's my understanding, just as an example there. So you do need to be in Kern County. And as I mentioned, with the city's funding, we do need to show that you're operating in the Bakersfield area. Primarily serve the constituents of Kern County. So again, just because your nonprofit's organized here, we also want to know that you're meeting the needs of and serving the people in the county. So we do want to see, and we're asking for your mission statement. We're asking for you to tell us a little bit about what you do and who you serve, so that we can show that this is benefiting and meeting the needs of those in the county of Kern. And you have to directly provide a good or service, so benefiting the general public. And really what's intended here, and when we see some of the exclusions, it might make more sense. We're intending to look at people that actually provide a good or service to the public, and not necessarily just passing through funds to other organizations that provide services. So we're looking to fund the people that are doing the work here. And that's why that criteria exists. Kristen, I see we're starting to get a few questions. Do you want me to?
Let's see.
You want me to hit them now, or do we want to come back to them?
We can go to them now. I'm just looking to see. If you received PPE from the Kern Recovers PPE program, are you eligible for this? I think we covered that. And
yeah,
that answer is no.
No. That answer is yes.
Okay.
So this is Jordan Green's question. So Kern Recovers has a PPE, that's personal protective equipment program, where we're supplying those sanitation and masks and gloves to for-profit and nonprofit businesses. If you're receiving products from PPE product from that program, you are still eligible for this funding. That doesn't make you ineligible. That may be, then the last one here was, my dental office services 90% Medi-Cal beneficiaries, but we're an S Corp. Would I qualify for a grant? No. You do need to be a 501c organization to qualify for this program. So let me go back to our slides here. We are on slide 6 here. Organizations that are ineligible. And this helps just further expound on the eligibility criteria. So if you've received funding under the Kern Recovers Small Business Forgivable Loan Program, and that was the question the gentleman asked really when we first started this call, hey, I got a forgivable loan, am I still eligible? No, you're not. Now, you can have still received funding through the Federal Payroll Protection Program, or an EIDL loan, EIDL, or other types of funding. We're not precluding those. What we are saying is, if you already got direct funding from the county for economic support, then you're ineligible for this. But if you received other types of funding, even COVID-related funding, we're just asking that you tell us what those are and what that amount is so we can consider it, but it doesn't necessarily make you ineligible. The second bullet point here, the grant proceeds must be used or cannot be used for an inherently religious purpose. This is, again, federal funding, so we have some federal restrictions on what we can spend money on. We cannot directly support religious purposes. This comes up, I've had a few questions on this one. Primarily, it'll say something along the lines of, we're part of a church, but we run say a soup kitchen on the side, or a food bank, or we have a program that meets the needs of the community in another way. you can apply for this funding, but it has to only be used for non-religious purposes. So it would have to be exclusively used for the soup kitchen or for the food bank, and it couldn't support your religious activities. But if you can separate those activities, then yes, you could still qualify. A good example of that might be flood ministries that you could relate to. Flood ministries, obviously ministries, there's a religious component to what they do, but they do a lot of direct services to our homeless community, and that activity would qualify as it's not inherently religious. Be exclusively engaged in lobbying. Again, this is a federal requirement. We can't use federal funds to support lobbying. So that's an activity we can't support with this money. And then primarily engaged in distributing funds to other organizations and individuals. And I'll tie this into the last bullet point here, and that is the one about a private foundation. There's a lot of nonprofit private foundations out there that simply grant money to other institutions, and there are vehicles to do that. It's not bad. It's just not what we're trying to support here. We're trying to support those organizations that are actually doing the work firsthand. So if you're primarily engaged in distributing funds to other or a private foundation, you're not going to be eligible. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do those activities. They just can't be the primary activity. So if you're granting funds to certain individuals or organizations and you're directly providing services also, then great, apply, tell us what you're doing. We're wanting to try to include as many nonprofits as possible in this program. I don't want to discourage anyone. And so if you think maybe you're borderline or you do some of both of these activities, just let us know, and I'd encourage you to apply. Be an educational institution. So this is really specifically intended to exclude schools, both private schools and public schools. So those schools have their own, their own limited people that they're serving that are paying tuition for those activities, and that is outside the scope of what we're supporting here. And there has been other funding through COVID that has been dedicated to public education systems. And so this is intended to meet other needs outside of education. Now, there are many nonprofits that do educational type work, but you may not be a private school or a public school. I would apply. That's not the person we're trying to exclude. If you're doing something encouraging reading, or you're doing something otherwise that's educationally oriented, that doesn't disqualify you. We just are trying to exclude particularly private schools and public schools. And then be a governmental or quasi-governmental entity. So again, governments have their own funding sources, and we're not trying to cross into a government and fund them. You could quasi-governmental is, I would say, something akin to, say, the post office is a quasi-governmental entity. Just because you receive funding from the federal government doesn't necessarily make you quasi-governmental, and we won't exclude you. I would again encourage you to apply, unless you're clearly just an arm of the government. Then this program wouldn't be tailored to you. And finally, social, recreational, sports, or booster clubs. The reason for this is that these are very narrow beneficiaries. So we're not trying to fund the Little League travel baseball team, or the example I've used before is this Seven Oaks Country Club. And it's nothing against those types of organizations, but again, we're not trying to fund private, very limited scope entities that have a limited benefit. Another example, it kind of falls within these would be like a homeowners association. A lot of homeowners associations are technically nonprofit, but they only benefit the people inside of the gates of that neighborhood. And that's not the intention of this program. We're trying to bring benefit out to a broader group. So so I think social, recreational, sports, or boosters club. Now, it doesn't mean that, you know, there are certainly groups that work through sports and to meet the needs of larger groups of individuals. If you think that's you, apply. That's different than say the Bakersfield High School football boosters club. That would be an example of someone that wouldn't fall in the scope here because it's a very narrow one sport, very narrow group of people that are being benefited. So again, I realize these are a little gray in some areas. If you don't think that, if you think maybe you're in the gray area, I would encourage you to apply. We really are wanting to welcome as many applicants and to put this money out and benefit as many nonprofits as possible. So, you know, that's error on the side of applying is what I would say.
So Jim, we've got a few more questions in the chat box.
Sure.
From Tiffany, with the Girl Scouts of Central California South. Their main office is located in Fresno. However, they also have an office in Kern County and serve the community within Kern County. Are they eligible to apply?
So I would have to point you back to your Secretary of State filing or IRS determination letter. If those, if you have if that headquartered is the term that we've used, if they show this Kern County address, the Kern County office as being the headquarters, then yes. If the headquarters is in Fresno, then the answer would be no. The next one from Lisa, it looks like we have a school type program. We have a school type program and feeding program. Do we qualify? We are not a government school. Lisa, I need to know a little more about what your program is, but I would encourage you to apply. So that seems, you know, that sounds like something that would qualify. Let's see. Curtis Nelson, I'm director of Kern County Wrestling Association. We provide tournaments for kids in Kern County and the Bakersfield area. Because we're sports, are we eligible? We do meet all the other criteria. That's a pretty broad application. Curtis, I would encourage you to apply. So let us take a look at what you do, and again, that's outside of a booster club or a private sports team. I think, you know, I would encourage you to apply. And then Jordan Green, thank you. One more question. The Resource Center is part of GFUSD, a public school district in Southern Bakersfield. We use the same tax ID as the district, but provide additional programs and don't require teachers. Are we eligible to apply? So it depends. If you have, you can use the same tax ID number, but if you're actually a separate entity, you need to be a 501c entity, Jordan. So if you're a 501c entity, but you're also a part of a school district, then you could be, that scenario might work. But you know, we need to know a little more about that. If you're just operating as a group informally under the school district, then no, you need to be a separate legal 501c. Would a mutual water company providing service to a limited group qualify? Probably not. Probably not. If you think that there's a case where you're, yeah, I mean, that's probably akin to the homeowners association. Your people are paying for your company to provide a service. I'm from community, and then Lisa M here. I'm from Community Action Partnership of Kern with a question about revenue versus expense. We received a lot of program specific support, so our revenue isn't showing an overall loss, but it is temporary funding. We also have extraordinary expenses related to COVID. Would the revenue make us ineligible? No. The revenue, look, if you, especially, and this is a good case because I know the city and the county have provided a lot of revenue in partnership with Community Action Partnership of Kern to deliver COVID-related programs to the public, and that inherently increases their revenue stream. But she's right in that it's temporary and it's for a specific purpose. That would not disqualify you. We just tell us, put that explanation in your application, Lisa. I would encourage Cap K to apply. And certainly the extraordinary expenses are real, and that would support the application as well. But if just because you've received revenues, extra revenue this year because of COVID doesn't make you ineligible. Just tell us what that is so we can consider it when we're looking at it. All right, so going back to the slides here, we have the award criteria. We are looking at employee count, but we're not driving necessarily the award off of the employee count. 2019 annual revenue. So what we are trying to determine is what has the financial impact of COVID been on your nonprofit. We look at 2019 revenues to provide a baseline. So to give us an understanding, is this a $100,000 a nonprofit? Is it a $10,000 nonprofit in a normal year, or in the prior year, or is it $1 million nonprofit? And it just helps us kind of gauge the revenue losses, because then we look at what's the actual revenue loss. What was the actual loss or decrease in revenue for the period of COVID, so March 1st through July 31st of this year compared to last year. And that just helps us to see what the actual impact is for those months. It helps us gauge to see exactly what COVID has done. We understand that it's not that simple, and so we are also asking for projected revenue losses from 8/1 to December 31st. That's important because I know a lot of you operate off of fundraisers, or you have certain events or things that happen during the year, and maybe they don't happen between March and July. Maybe they happen in October or November, and those can't happen now. And so we know that that's an issue. We want to both look at what the actual loss in revenue is for this period, and then tell us what you are concerned about. What do you see that impact going to be through the end of the year? And then what extraordinary expenses have you had? So that we can gauge the impact both on the revenue and the expense side. We're looking at all of those pieces. We are considering what other support you might have received regarding COVID-19, whether it's, as I mentioned, federal PPP, state grants, the federal EIDL program, and I think it's EIDL, but it's either way, it's the loan program through the Small Business Association that's COVID related. We just want to know what those are, and so we're working on the metrics. It is primarily driven off of the financial impact. So in the past, you probably all know well that the federal PPP program and even the county's forgivable loan program have been very employee-centric. If you don't have employees and payroll, you didn't qualify for much, if anything, in those programs. We are intentionally not considering that in this. We want to know how many employees you're supporting and what that commitment is, but we're certainly more interested in what the financial impact of COVID has had on your nonprofit.
All right, we've got a couple more questions here in the chat box.
All right, so we also, let's see, this is from Lindsay Call. It says, we also have a unique situation like Lisa M. Lisa M was from Community Action Partnership of Kern. It says, to explain our financials, would you recommend a separate addendum document or to write some explanation on our financial documents? I've looked at the application already, And so I'm thinking logistically about the best place to explain unusual revenue situations. Thanks. So Lindsay, what we've seen and has worked pretty well is just a document submitted with the, I think they attached it with the supporting documents for additional COVID-related financial assistance they'd have already received. And I've seen it in a Word format, and I've seen it in a PDF format, where the entities have just written, a brief explanation, telling us what the situation is regarding that extra revenue that they received. Maybe it's dedicated to a certain support program or something else. So the best way to answer your question, I would just attach it to the attachment regarding COVID-19 related financial assistance and upload it to us, and we'll certainly be able to look at that. You can also attach it to your actual decrease in revenue, or if you might show an increase in revenue because of that. You can attach it to either one. We'll get it either way, and just send something to us so we know we have something to look at. And then the next question is from Lily Parker. Would new hire salaries be considered extraordinary expense? So Lily, possibly. If the new hires were performing an activity that is COVID related, so if they're doing something that you didn't have to do before because of COVID, then yes, I think that would be a legitimate assertion. So if you're having to have extra people there in order to clean your facility, if you have people there helping social distancing measures, or doing handing out masks and making sure that masks are being worn, or whatever it is, if it's COVID related support, yes. If you're just hiring people that to administer your programs as you would have otherwise, then I would say no. But if what they're doing is COVID related, yes. The next question is from Martha Hernandez. Martha asks, for 2019 annual revenue, can we provide 2018-19 profit and loss documents? Yes. So we've had this question come up a couple times. That's great, Martha. The question we've got sometimes has been, hey, my nonprofit doesn't operate on a calendar year. We operate on a different year. And what we've provided guidance on is just send us your most recent 12-month revenue number that we can look back on. So if you closed your year and it's 2018-19 and that year is closed, then just send that to us. That would be fine. Again, it's just used to help us gauge what the financial impact has been and give us a baseline for your organization. And then Lily Parker says, our meals, or I guess it was a comment on following up on her previous question, our meals increased due to COVID-19. Yes, so look, if that would be an expense related to COVID, I would encourage you to include that in your application.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Chris, is there anything that you wanted to add at this time, or would it be okay to just jump into this application?
No, go ahead.
All right, awesome. So a couple of tips just before you get started, because this is an application that doesn't allow you to save your information. So when you sit down to do the application, you need to do it in one fell swoop. It's not challenging, you just need to prepare and gather the information. So a couple of tips for that. They do ask for some specific numbers, either the NAICS or the DUNS number. And I'm going to show you where you can really easily find your NAICS number. They're going to want to know your supervisorial district, and I can show you how we're going to do that. We're going to walk through that. They want to know your web address in a specific format. So a few little things that you need to be ready to go with, as well as the following documentation, right? So you're needing your federal tax 990, your 990 EZ, or even evidence that you're a 990N filer. Your articles of incorporation, your IRS determination letter, your corporate bylaws, your certificate of status from the Secretary of State, and we're going to walk through how you obtain that. Description of how you're going to use the grant, as well as that 5-month revenue comparison. And I'll even show you a really simple Excel spreadsheet to be able to capture that. So why don't I change this screen over? Let's try this. I might need to stop sharing and go to, well, that didn't work. Let's see. Let's get up. I have all these tabs open for you. Hang tight, guys. All right, so here we go. First thing is first, I want to just show you that this is the actual application. If you wanted to find that application, here's the kerncounty.com home webpage. And you would just simply click on Kern County COVID county funded programs to support local businesses and nonprofits. From there, you simply scroll down to the nonprofit grants program and you click there. And then you'll be given a link to the application, which looks like this. So the application will go through those eligibility questions from the very beginning. So did you receive a loan from Small Business Forgivable, the county one? Are you going to use the grant for religious purposes? Are you engaged in lobbying? Are you distributing funds to other organizations? Are you an educational institution? Are you a government or quasi-governmental entity? Those questions, those ineligibility criteria that we went through earlier, right? So you answer no to those if that's how your answers are. If you answer yes to one of them, you're going to get a nice little message that says, sorry, you're not eligible. So let's go to the next screen. I went ahead and prepared this as if for Kern Community Foundation. Not that we're applying, but just so that you could see what our answers are. So first we're going to put in our legal name. And then they're going to start asking us some kind of funky questions like, what kind of 501 are you? And what is the special number that you need? Well, guess what? Because most of you have registered with us, you already have your GuideStar registration, right? So you can go to guidestar.org, look up your organization, and look at all the great information that's right there at your fingertips. Here's your NAICS code, here's your EIN, here's the type of 501 that you are. So right here gives you some really easy information to access. Let's go back here. Again, basic information. Oh, wait. Supervisorial district, I have no idea. So you're gonna go up to, if this thing would go away, we're gonna go back to our county website. Under government, if you scroll right over here, here's your supervisorial district map. You can scroll down, you can either look at it, get the PDF and enlarge it, or even better, you can put your address in here. And it'll tell you who your county supervisor is. So that's on the county website. Back over here, we already learned where we could find our EIN. That's on GuideStar. It's also going to be on your tax return. Do you have a website? Yes. If you're answering yes, then you need to make sure that you're capturing the address in this format. The easiest thing to do is to go to your home page, open it up, and just copy that address that's in the search bar right there, and then paste it, okay? Because customers that you're serving. Were you in operation? Yes. And then primary contact. Next screen. This is where you're going to upload some of those documents that were asked for earlier, right? So articles of incorporation, determination letter. I think you guys are all familiar with what those look like, but in the event that you want to make sure that what you're uploading is right, you can actually check. So here's our determination letter. Remember how Jim was talking about your location? See right here in the who the organization is addressed to, you can see that we're Kern County, Bakersfield. If this wasn't correct, then it's real easy to go back here to X out, right? And then click here to upload again and find a new document. And it's right here, easy to find. Now let's go down here to the Secretary of State thing. So the best place to start is actually with the Secretary of State's website. And so let's see how we can find that. I have it up here. Here's Alex Padilla, California Secretary of State. And unfortunately, when you look at this, it's really hard to say, well, how the heck do I find the certificate of status? So just type it in right here. Certificate of status. The first one isn't applicable, but there it is. Business entity records request. That's what you're requesting from the Secretary of State. You go right here to business searches. You're a corporation, nonprofit corporation, and you're going to type in your name, and then you're going to do a search. They've identified 4 that kind of match. We're looking for Kern Community Foundations. So we go right there, and then we hit this blue box saying we want a certificate of status. And it's going to come here to a shopping basket. And it actually is going to cost $5. So you put in that information, pay the $5, and then it takes about, last week it took me about 10 minutes before they sent me an email with the certificate. Okay. Back to this. Let's see. The 990, as well as how you're going to use the grant. They're not looking for you to write a dissertation. Many applications will be coming in. They're going to need to process them as quickly as possible. So a good, just descriptive paragraph will do. You don't have to write a term paper.
Yeah, in fact, Kristen, I'm glad you said that. In fact, we'd prefer you didn't. If you just give us a nice brief synopsis of what you do, a paragraph, 2 paragraphs is plenty. If we have questions, we'll go to your website or we'll get back in touch with you if we're unclear on something.
Oh yeah, I was checking to see.
I mentioned that here is a real simplified Excel spreadsheet that documents the 5 months of revenue for 19. I noticed as I look at it that it doesn't look like it's the right one, because I actually did one that has both years on there. So I can go back, just like I said earlier, and I can get rid of this one. I can go to upload. I'm gonna look for that file. And
he wants to go to Cal Poly.
There we go. We're gonna upload it. All right. So then we're good to go here. We go to the next window. Whoops, nope, I'm not, because I didn't upload the determination letter.
Kristen, can you click on your the Secretary of State certificate of status so that they can see what it looks like? So
actually, I'm going to pull it up here.
There it is. Yeah.
Let me move it over here. You guys see it?
No. Oh, yes. Now
yes?
you.
Okay. So that's what the certificate of status looks like. And again, it comes electronically within 10 or 15 minutes of you giving them $5.
So Kristen, let me just say on this one, if you go to the Secretary of State website and you just search for this certificate of standing or for certificate of status, there's actually an FAQ on there that says you can't get it online, that you can only get it by mail or walking it in. That is not correct. Obviously, you just saw how to get it online. For whatever reason, the Secretary of State's website information is outdated in that regard. So just to know, I'm glad we walked through this process. I will also say this is different than the statement of information. So annually, you all file a document with the Secretary of State that's called the Statement of Information. We've gotten several of those attached to applications. And then we have to go back and say, hey, no, we need a certificate of status, not your statement of information. So make sure you do what Kristen just showed you, and your document actually shows your status.
All right. So I'm just looking at the chat box here. Is a Facebook page sufficient to have instead of a website?
Yes, we don't require you to have a website at all. We're just saying if you do, let us know what it is. And
Right.
if it's a Facebook page, great.
Then Curtis wondered about what the certificate of status looks like. We've got that. Louis was reminding people to be on mute. And then for the customer beneficiaries, is something like Kern County residents sufficient, or are you looking for something more like a paragraph description?
Look, if you're servicing a particular part of the community, if you're in Ridgecrest and you are primarily serving residents in that area, we just want to know that. If you're delivering programs countywide or in a certain area or with a certain demographic, just tell us. That's what we're looking for. If it's broadly benefiting everyone in Kern County, that's acceptable. But if you have a narrower focus than that, just let us know.
All right. The rest of the application it mirrors exactly what we just looked at. You may need be asked to provide some of those additional pieces of information. So if you have recognize or anticipating lost revenue in the latter part of 2020, providing documentation on that. If you have extenuating expenses that you've incurred, documenting that. And then it's just a matter, the very last screen is just attestation and putting your initials in the boxes that you agree to use the proceeds in the manner in which they were expected and granted out. So I'm going to stop for a minute and ask, are there any other questions right now as it relates to the application?
Kristen,
Quick question.
Sure.
I think you guys just went over, but I think I may have missed it. But when you guys ask for documentation to support, say, the gains or losses for 2019 and 2020, would like bank statements be sufficient to support or to be used as a supportive documentation?
Yeah, so Aisha, this is Jim. We'll accept whatever you have. We're not looking to audit your numbers. I don't need source documents. What we do, it can be, as in Kristen showed a spreadsheet that just summarized activity. That's acceptable to us. If you have an accounting ledger that just prints out from your accounting system, we'll take that. If you have a bank statement and you don't have a lot of transactions and you just want to highlight them and tell us what those numbers are, that's fine. The easier, the better for us to be able to just determine what that financial impact is. So we don't necessarily need, we don't want invoices. In fact, I don't even really want your bank statement because I don't want your bank account number and those personal information. I'd prefer that you just put, total those up, put it on a spreadsheet and say, here's my revenue sources for last year and here they are for this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Kristen, can you please put that screenshot back up so I can take a picture of it?
Actually, I'll do one better, Aisha. We're gonna put the template up on the website, a link to the template. So
Awesome. Thank you
won't
guys
even have
so
to
much.
create it. All right.
Thank you.
Let's see. I think we have from Marta. Just to be clear, you guys will be the ones to determine how much funding each nonprofit receives, correct?
Yes, Kern County, we have a team here evaluating all of those applications, and they'll the levels of award are again 5,000, 10,000, and 20,000, and that's being determined at Kern County.
Great. And then one more question. What are the stipulations of what the money can be used for?
Yeah, so as mentioned earlier on, I think on our first slide, is that the funding needs to go to mitigate the financial impacts on your organization from COVID-19. That's it. You don't have to report back to us. There is no follow-up reporting as to how the funding was used, which is why we're so interested in understanding the financial impact on your organization. Because if you demonstrate that there's a financial impact, then this is going to address that. So I think I answered the question.
I think so. Great. So we just have a couple of minutes before the end of our time. The first thing I wanted to do was to invite one of our recipients it was just announced last week, or was informed last week. So Laura Wolf with Kern Literacy Council, what can you tell us about the process?
So
well, I can tell you that it was, except for the caveat that you pointed out about you have to have it all ready to go at one time, you can't save. Everything else went very smoothly. And the other tips you gave as far as finding the NCIS and the Secretary of State, if anyone has applied for any of the PPP loans, this definitely will be a piece of cake. And I wanted to share that a great thanks to the county, and wanted to let you know that I have taken advantage of the PPE, and then we also received some windfall grants even before COVID. So we'd gotten some one-time grant funding not related to COVID. So our income was actually up for the times they were looking for, but we did have to cancel two major fundraisers now. And so so they were kind of apples and oranges. So I appreciated taking that into consideration. So, but yes, I would definitely just encourage everybody to apply. And, it was nice to work with Alan. They had, a question. I think I had a document that was locked. So be careful of that too. But overall, it's just been great. And we did receive the federal PPP early on. And as I said, we've taken advantage of the county PPE. So, and we Kern Literacy Council have been able to pivot. So we are actually seeing many silver linings in this, as far as with school being back in session, people having computers and hotspots. That's going to help us going down the road, being able to reach more people throughout the county. So, so we'll definitely be putting the money to good use as well.
Great.
So Laura, your organization's a great example, because you did receive other funding, and that didn't preclude your application from moving forward. And so I think for a lot of reasons, it's a good example for folks on the call. You and I haven't had a chance to talk, and I don't think we've actually sent anything officially to you. So
Right.
so it's my pleasure to be able to tell you. To announce really that Kern Literacy Council is the first recipient of this grant, and you'll be receiving a grant in the amount of $20,000.
Oh my gosh.
So
well, thank you so much. That's exceeded my expectations. I really appreciate that.
We're very pleased to be able to do that here, and hopefully it helps your organization, and we appreciate the work that you do in the community.
Thank you so much. And I have been sharing the word too, to get others out there to apply. So
you will be hearing from us this week. We'll have a grant document for you And so again, congratulations and thank you for the
Thank you
work
so
do.
much.
Terrific. So I see.
Kristen,
ahead.
one last comment, just a small detail in the DUNS number. I know, I think we asked for the NICIS number or the DUNS number. If you're awarded, we are going to need a DUNS number from you because we have to report that to the federal government. And we didn't know when we were creating the application that that was going to be necessary. So if you're applying, they're free. I think they're fairly easy to get. You just do that online. So if you're applying, you might as well, we'll still take your application without it, but when we go to award, we'll need a DUNS number from you at some point.
That's good to know, Jim. I do believe that, yes, they're free to get, but they may take a 24-hour turnaround.
Yeah.
So just to be prepared for that. I also wanted to let everyone know, well, we have one more question. On the application, it asks what type of 501c. So the IRS, because they like to make things a little bit more complicated, has a number of different ways that they categorize nonprofits. So a 501c3 is a public charity, whereas a C4 is a membership-based organization. I would think that most of the people on the call are C3s. You can find out what type of 501 you are either on GuideStar or on your tax return. Your 990, there'll be a box checked that'll tell you what type.
Hey,
I would
Kristen,
also, yes.
on their IRS determination letter that they're going to upload, it says on that letter.
Yep, that's another spot. Good point. I also want to point out that this webinar, most of it was recorded. I forgot, so not all of it, but most of it was recorded. But also the slide deck will be posted on our website at kernfoundation.org/nonprofit strengthening. And there you will also find recordings of the webinars that we've hosted earlier in September, which are access to the new state grants portal, as well as the state library system. And then just last week, we did a webinar on accessing resources through the CalCap program. We're going to continue to provide resources and webinars for folks, but that's a great place to find recordings and more information. And then finally, I would just offer up that both myself and Louis Medina are available. Feel free to reach out to either one of us. Here is Louis's email address, louis@kernfoundation.org, and then of course, Kristen at kernfoundation.org. Just give us a call, drop us a line, and if you're having any issues, we're happy to help you, happy to walk through that application. Don't be afraid, you can do it, right, Laura? Laura says yes. All right. Thank you again to Jim and to Chris for stepping up and providing us with this additional information. I think it's been really helpful. And everybody.
I am happy to share my experience as well, in person if anyone wants to call.
Super.
I just said, tell Siri to call Kern Literacy Council.
Kristen, thank you for organizing this and your support in getting this put together. And thanks to Chris and the city of Bakersfield for being a great partner in this program.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And yes, a copy will be posted on our website. Just give us a little bit of time to get that done, but it will be out there. So,
Kristen, if you send a link to that to me, we'll push it out through the county social media and other ways also. Yeah.
Super.
Yeah, same with us, Kristen, at the city.
All right. Great, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Take care.